Story 1. Put it in a high-yield savings account that would at least give me $45,000 in interest per year. Then I'll slowly determine what I want to do with it. But the answer is to invest it. Story 2. Open a youth outreach center for mentoring and tutoring that collaborates with other organizations to provide activities and events that help young people develop leadership and teamwork skills. Story 3. 1. Pay off all debts. Buy a home that's about £250,000, but no more than £300,000. Organize a portion to be put away into savings as an emergency fund. Invest a decent amount into index funds, mutual funds, stocks, shares, and bonds. Pretty much have a finger in every financial pie as well as saving money for a retirement fund. Treat some family. Keep my job knowing that I could simply leave and go elsewhere if I wanted without the stress of waiting for the next paycheck. Try to live closer to the way I do now, but more relaxed. It's much better to be relatively comfortable with a lot of flexibility to do things like go on holidays or have a few days out than it is to try and replicate a lifestyle I couldn't maintain. Story 4. That's too easy, and I wouldn't feel like I earned it the right way. So, I would find a charity I can agree with after doing research and personal digging and donate it there. It's always best to work for what you get out of life, man. That's where the true value lies. If you believe a word I said before, you're an idiot. Story 5. Invest $850,000 in a diversified portfolio. $100,000 in the bank. $50,000 in maybe a secondhand sporty SUV, or a new one if it's under $50,000. Meanwhile, get a house on mortgage loans. Acquire 2 houses and pay them off through rent and returns or capital gains from the portfolio investment. Then, continue buying more houses as I gain more rent and benefit from the compounding of investments. Eventually, purchase a decent penthouse in a decade or earlier. Story 6. Consult with a financial advisor and have them build out a plan with you. That cash is losing buying power on a yearly basis. They can assist not only with mitigating the damage of inflation, but also with helping it grow into a cash-flowing entity. Best of luck. Story 7. 10% to the poor. 10% to the emergency fund. A good house with a gym. 10% for enhanced security. 10% to the kids in my family. 10% to the brightest in my family for his or her education. 3 locks for a startup. I am aware of many needs in my area. Story 8. Pay the rest of my bills, including the mortgage. Go on a short vacation. Buy a bottle of whiskey. Give my kids and stepkids a few bucks and invest the rest. Story 9. Invest it into a well-diversified stock portfolio and draw $40,000 a year, because if you think you cannot burn through $1 million, you will be broke again in short order. Story 10. Invest. The S&P 500 has grown 35% in the past year. If you had invested $1 million 1 year ago, you would have earned $350,000 that you could spend on whatever without losing your original investment. Story 11. It's not quite enough, in my opinion, to outright retire, but I'm stocking it away in secure assets to make sure I'm walking away from work at least 10 years earlier. Time is priceless, and I don't want to be giving it to work for longer than I have to. Story 12. I would hire a guy who will invest and make my money grow. I will retire as soon as possible. Get a home for myself, a car, and go for trips whenever I want with my family, friends, and partner. Story 13. $800,000 into a long-term deposit high-interest account. Buy a cheap apartment or unit and a cheap, reliable car and get it mechanically sound. Do not tell anyone either. Story 14. Pay off the house and buy 2 brand new cars. Finish remodeling the house. Put 18 months of the new expenses in a money market account and put the rest in a retirement account. Story 15. I'm roughly $50,000 in loan and credit card debt, so I'll pay that off. Instead of selling the house, I'd renovate it and make it into a rental, since I wouldn't need to rely on the profits to buy a house where our families are. We would live off the rest until we both secure jobs, keep an emergency fund and some liquid savings, and invest the rest into a mixture of Vanguard, bonds, and similar options. Story 16. You know what I would do if I had $1 million? I would invest half of it in low-risk mutual funds and then take the other half over to my friend Acidella, who works in securities. Story 17. Pay off the house that we currently live in. Save a portion for my children's studies until college and a portion for my husband's and my retirement. I'm not going to upgrade our lifestyle. Story 18. I would not be happy. The people around me might be happy, but I would not be happy. I am adapted to that no resources life, so if I went from living in my niche to being able to afford different circumstances, I would not handle it well. Story 19. Pay out of pocket for medical expenses or expensive insurance. Hire somebody to find me a job. At my age, that really isn't enough for me to retire on, so I'll need to go back to work. Maybe I could be a little more picky, move if I needed to, but I would certainly still need to work. Story 20. I'd pay off all debt, fully fund my Roth account, and put the rest in a money market. I would take a year off and then return to work. After the taxes were paid, I would return to work but continue taking money each year for a big vacation and to fully fund my Roth account. Story 21. I have been thinking about this for a while, and basically you should try to do something you want. It is not a huge amount, but essentially eliminate debt and obtain housing. If you do not like your job, think of something you are more willing to do now since you can take more risks. Travel more or invest in a hobby if you have any excess. Story 22. Buy a house I could easily afford on my income and invest the rest into the market. So, all in all, I would invest the money by doing those things and lower my everyday expenses. Story 23. Talk to the people at Performance Wealth and see what they recommend. They are a wealth management group that knows all the ins and outs and could probably figure out how to mitigate the taxes received on that money. Story 24. Barbecue a couple of Wagyu A5 steaks. Buy that microphone I wanted. Try crystal champagne. Nice acoustic guitar. Build my own solar power wall. Car and bike track day. Buy 2 houses, live in one, rent the other, and never work again. Whoop. Story 25. Build the mobile home I've been designing and give the rest to my church so I don't have to deal with it. It's a tax break, and I can trust them to do good things with it, and I know they'll have my back if I ever fall on hard times. They'll feed me and make sure I'm warm, always have. I don't like thinking about money. It's more stress than comfort. Story 26. Open a youth outreach center for mentoring and tutoring that partners with other organizations for programs and events that build leadership and teamwork skills for young people. Story 27. I quit my $80,000 day job in information technology 15 minutes away in favor of walking down the street a few minutes away to keep lonely senior residents happy for a couple of hours a day and stop to smell flowers on the way back home. Actually, I did just that for half my salary just the other day. Good riddance to the information technology world after 35 years. Story 28. I think I would buy you a house, furniture for your house like a nice Chesterfield or an ottoman, a reliable automobile, a tree fort with a tiny fridge, a fur coat but not a real fur coat that's cruel, an exotic pet like a llama or an emu, John Merrick's remains, lots of craft dinner with really expensive ketchup, a green dress but not a real one that's cruel, some art, and a monkey. Story 29. Take 3/4 of it and invest in stocks that return a dividend and reinvest that dividend payment. Just do that for 5 years and I would be able to retire early. Story 30. Finish paying off the last of the mortgage, put the rest into retirement accounts, and give a very nice 2-week notice to my boss. She is a great boss and deserves that consideration. Story 31. Pay off student loans, buy a new or newer but not overly expensive vehicle to replace my totaled hybrid. Rest in peacefulty. Put some in savings and some in investments. Probably go back to school and get a second degree in what I want to do rather than be stuck with a degree that doesn't serve me very well and limits my career field to things I'm not very interested in and don't pay well. Story 32. Pay my mortgage. Pay off my car. Pay off my wife's student debts. Put the rest in some sort of certificate of deposit or high-yield investment and keep working like nothing else happened, knowing I secured my family's future financially if something happens to me. Story 33. Man, it's getting weird being on a site for so long that you become the old fart. $1 million doesn't even seem like that much anymore. It used to be dream money, and now it's like, well, 1/4 of it's going to taxes and lawyers, the rest will be useful for college tuition and a few years of retirement. Maybe I can get a nice candy bar today, though. Story 34. The general rule of thumb is that you should only draw 3.5 to 4% of your investments annually for living expenses if you want them to last more than 30 years. That means your $1 million is worth about $35,000 to $40,000 per year. That's a nice bump for anyone, but it doesn't put you into wealthy territory. Here is what I would do. Fund my 4 kids' college savings accounts so they all have enough for an in-state education. Pay off my mortgage. Renovate my kitchen and do a few other projects. Keep $75,000 or so in a high-yield savings account as an emergency fund. Put the rest, approximately $600,000, into a brokerage account invested in a simple 3-fund portfolio. Go to work on Monday and never tell anyone. Anyone ever in this situation should read this. Story 35. I am not in debt, and basically this would go into either a retirement fund or a home I may buy in the future. 1 million is not a lot of money and a lot at the same time. It can be burned through very quickly, but if you are already in a comfortable financial situation, it is not going to make huge changes to your life. Story 36. I would feel kind of guilty at first and sad that someone died. I would try and start a business so I can earn a living wage. Take care of my necessities like food, shelter, buy a house and transportation, fix my car. In other words, I would use the money to try and be self-sufficient because that is the real wealth. Once I have taken care of my needs and my family's, then I would find a way to be philanthropic to help the people around me also become self-sufficient, like a community farm, for example. Story 37. Any person in the world knows what to do. You get a house with a 25-year roof, an indestructible economy car, and you put the rest into the system at 3 to 5% and you pay your taxes. That's your base. Understand? That's your fortress of solitude. That puts you, for the rest of your life, at a level of independence. Story 38. Splurge on several international vacations over a period of 2 to 3 years. First class. Nice hotels. Maybe spend up to $60,000 on this. Pay off my mortgage, which currently is around $390,000. Pay off my fiancé's debt, maybe around $90,000. $460,000 left to invest and save wisely over years or decades. Maybe use it to retire 5 to 10 years early. Story 39. I would not touch it for 2 years. I would maximize contributions to the 401k and Roth individual retirement account for a minimum of 2 years. Then, after that time, I would allow myself to live off the interest and spend some of it. Story 40. First, I would change my name so my many relatives couldn't find me to ask for some. Then donate to libraries and charity, pay bills, support my grandsons, then move to the United Kingdom and see all the history there. Yes, I have thought about this before. Story 41. I'm 25 with a stable job, a place to live, no debt, and a sizable income. I don't need that much right now, so I'd probably spend up to $100,000 on immediate quality of life improvements and figure out the best way to invest the rest long term. Story 42. I always thought setting a pyramid of cash on fire, like in The Dark Knight, would be cool. I wonder how much a pyramid of fake cash costs. Story 43. I would build a tiny home or small cottage community for older people who do not have any family and have pets that they worry about if anything were to happen to them. Even if I do not win the lottery, I would love to be able to create it. Story 44. Pay off mortgage with half, invest a quarter, and spend the last quarter on things and experiences that enrich my life. Probably lots of travel and a few toys. Story 45. Buy a farm and gather as many stray animals as possible. Hire caretakers, cooks, a veterinarian or two, and provide the animals with the best lives possible. In South Africa, that would be more than $17 million. Story 46. Spend about half on a 2-bedroom apartment in the block where I currently rent a 1-bedroom. Quit my current job, which I hate, to travel for 6 months, and then find a simpler job without the pressure of paying rent anymore. Story 47. Invest and eliminate any debts. If you don't have any type of passive income, you'll forever be a slave to the grind and reliant on other people giving you money. Story 48. I think about this a lot because it's likely to happen when my dad passes. I don't know the exact amount, but I know it's substantial, and I also have bad money habits. I already own my home outright, so I would pay off my car and put a chunk in an account for home and car taxes, upkeep, etc. Then, I would hire someone to help manage my money because I absolutely cannot be trusted. I don't make big purchases, but I make tons of small ones, and they add up. I think I would want to get things arranged so that I didn't have to work, like investments or whatever people do with large amounts of money, and give myself a monthly allowance for bills and food and whatnot, then quit my job and go back to school. I might start a college fund for my niece, but she's likely to inherit some money the same time I do, so it would depend on what my dad did for her in his will. Story 49. Donate to worthy causes like my church, the Fistula Foundation, and Charity Water. Fix everything that is broken or not working well in my 1950s house and bring it up to current building code standards, such as insulation, repiping, and updating the electrical service. Maybe do some minimal landscaping to neaten things up. With the rest, I'd put a chunk away for retirement and increase my budget allowance for what I call personal philanthropy. Story 50. Pay off my condominium, put the rest in an index fund, and keep working. We already travel extensively. I would probably save a little less in my 401k to upgrade our travel experience out of my normal paycheck.